You know, as I mentioned earlier, this idea of the anti-discrimination bill that was up, and that it's been there for many, many years, and yet after all these years, we're getting so close, and we can't let this happen. It's so important that we go out and tell the people the truth about what's in this anti-discrimination bill. What you see up there is what the current anti-discrimination laws in Utah, those are the laws. That's the current law in Utah. As we have been going around the state, and other legislators have gone with me also, and we've done a couple of meetings with LeVar and talked about this issue, people are shocked when they find out what it's really all about. And so that's what I'm here today to do, is talk to you about what this is really all about, so that you can go out and tell people, and you can make arrangements to have myself and others that are working on this issue to actually come and present this. I have never done anything that is as successful as this. I've done lots of presentations. I've been doing this for many, many years. I've spoken before lots of groups on educational issues and pro-life issues and all kinds of issues. I have never, ever had the success that I've had with this one. And by that I mean, and not just me, all of us, the turning of hearts. We have gone to meetings where people have come to tell us how wrong we are. We've gone to meetings where people want to even, you know, a little bit of a heckling going on. And with only the exception of only 2 times, and all of it, like I said, Stuart mentioned the 50 meetings, and then I've done several without him and with other legislators, and only been 2 people in all of that, other than the homosexuals that came, that didn't totally change their position on this after they heard this presentation and found out exactly what is in this anti-discrimination bill. So let's talk about what is in the bill and what they're adding. Okay, they're going to add the words sexual orientation and gender identity. That's what changes the bill. Now, what does that mean? Bills have definitions. Sexual orientation means an individual's actual or perceived orientation as a heterosexual, homosexual, or bisexual. Gender identity means an individual's internal sense of gender without regard to the individual's designated sex at birth. Evidence of gender identity may include an individual's self-identification as well as the individual's gender-related appearance, mannerisms, and other gender-related characteristics. Now, this is the actual language in the bill. Both these slides I've just shown you, I just copy and pasted the language right from the bill. So what does that mean? Gender identity, you are who you think you are. Now, that means if a man thinks he's a woman and he wants to be treated like a woman, then he just goes and tells his boss that's the case. Because this bill has to do with employment and housing. However, once you put that language in that bill, and LeVar can tell you all about that, if it's anywhere in the code, we have then just said as the state of Utah that we recognize and support this language, that we think that you are who you think you are. Now back to the language in the bill. In the bill it says it's a discriminatory and prohibited employment practice to deny an employee access to restrooms, shower facilities, or dressing facilities that are consistent with the employee's gender identity as established with the employer. So if the employee goes to their boss, and let's say it's a man, and he says, you know, I think I'm a girl, or I perceive I'm a girl, or however he wants to word it, and he says, so from now on I'll be using the women's restroom or the dressing room or the showers, you know, if they work someplace where they actually have an exercise facility, which a lot of places do now. You go in to work early and you can exercise and get ready for the day. And that, you know, showering and getting ready. If they should pass this bill, then the people who are currently doing that, who will no longer be able to go in and exercise and shower unless they want to shower with the opposite sex, has lost their right to do that. So who's being discriminated against? You know, when we first started dealing with these anti-discrimination bills several years ago, I started telling legislators about this very thing. I said, You know, if you pass this anti-discrimination legislation, like that has happened in other states, this is, you know, you're going to find people sharing, you know, men and women sharing bathrooms and dressing rooms and showers. And it made them mad that I even said that. They would say, Gayle, why do you say those kinds of things? You're just, you know, when you say those things, you're just, you know, discrediting yourself. So when this bill came out 2 years ago, after the sponsor had been changed on the bill from a Democrat to a Republican, and this language was just in the bill. In some states, they passed it without the language in the bill, and after lawsuits, every lawsuit, they put that, you know, they win the lawsuits. But Utah just put it in there. So, end of that conversation. You know, okay, yeah, I guess you're right. So, the sponsor of the bill. The sponsor of the bill is a Republican Senator Steve Urquhart, and he was speaking to 2,200 gay and lesbian supporters at an Equality Utah fundraising banquet, and he was using scriptures to explain his conversion to their cause. And he used scriptures that some of our very favorite. He said, from 2 Kings chapter 6, Elijah's servant awoke to see that they were surrounded by a great army. And he, Elijah, answered, Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. Urquhart compared today's growing tolerance of the gay agenda with Elijah's restoring the sight and turning the hearts of his enemies. Urquhart has vowed that his anti-discrimination bill will pass the legislature this year. He said, just as you gave me vision and turned my heart, we must open more eyes and turn more hearts. One, by example, conversion, education, and advocacy, we will open eyes and turn hearts in every committee, meeting, floor vote, and every election in the state of Utah. For they that be with us are more than they that be with them. Now, this is directly from the talk that he gave. He was referring to the gay community as us and the defenders of the traditional family as them. So, what has happened because of these anti-discrimination laws? You've all heard the stories about the florists, the people who do flowers, and there's so many of them. We could spend 2 hours just going from slide to slide talking about. And this is about one in Washington State, where the woman who owned the flower shop said that she just could not do the flowers for a gay wedding, and she said she could not provide the flowers because of her relationship with Jesus Christ. But what happened to her? The Attorney General said, it's my job to enforce the laws of the state of Washington. Under the Consumer Protection Act, it is unlawful to discriminate against customers based on sexual orientation. If a business provides a product or service to the opposite sex couples for their weddings, then it must provide the same-sex couple or the same product or service. So this lady ended up closing her doors because she had to choose between doing wedding flowers for all weddings, including homosexual weddings, or abiding by her religious belief. And she picked to abide by her religious belief and had to close her doors. Same kind of things that happened in New Mexico that had to do with a photographer. They were told that they violated the anti-discrimination law for refusing to take pictures of a gay couple. And it was a unanimous decision from the state Supreme Court that said that the business's refusal to photograph at the ceremony involving two women violated New Mexico's Human Rights Act in the same way as if they had refused to photograph a wedding between people of different races. And so they too were faced with the same choices and decisions. Do they have to close their doors? Because, you know, they still have their photography shop, but like in the case of the flowers, and cakes and things, that's where they make their most money, especially the floral shops. And so they couldn't continue in their business. Oops. Liberty Ridge Farms in New York recently was fined $13,000 for refusing to allow a gay wedding ceremony to take place on their property. And this is their own home. It just had such a big home that they turned it into a reception center and a place for parties and things and weddings there. They even told the couple that they could have, the gay couple, that they could have their reception there but not their wedding, that they just could not, because of their religious belief, allow the wedding to take place. And of course, the end result is $13,000 for a small business. If they do it again, there'll be more fines, and who knows how far that will go. And so they no longer perform weddings there. Stuart told you about the one in Idaho, and he also told you about the mayor, and I'm just going to skip over those. So this also spreads beyond that. Right now, it's gone into the schools. How did it get into the schools? It got into the schools through lawsuits. Here's one that happened in Colorado. This is this little 6-year-old girl, but she's not a girl. This is a 6-year-old boy. And you can tell, when you look at the picture, what? Well, they said that he was diagnosed with gender identity disorder. He thinks he's a girl. And so his parents, threatened to sue the school because they would not allow him to use the girls' bathroom. And that's what he said he wanted to do. Well, they said it's against the law. They said, well, we'll tell you what we'll do for you. You can use the teacher's lounge. And the parents said absolutely not. That he they'd have to let him use the bathroom. So the girls' bathroom. So they sued. Meanwhile, they pulled him out of school and started teaching him at home. And while they sued, and they said that Coy showed early preference for girls' things. At 5 months, he took his sister's pink blanket. He showed little interest in boy toys. Whoops, excuse me. Sorry. And he refused to leave the house in boys' clothes. Coy became depressed and withdrawn, telling his parents he wanted to get fixed by a doctor. Troy was one of a triplet. There were 3 of them. 2 of them were girls. And so, yeah, he did play with little girls. So they sued. They won. They put Coy back in school, and he started using the girls' bathroom with the girls, though he still had his boy body parts. And when that happened, then, of course, it sets a precedence for all of the schools in Colorado. In Washington State, their non-discrimination policy prevented them from stopping a transgender man who goes by the name of Colleen Francis from exposing himself to young girls inside of a woman's locker room. The transgender man who identifies as a woman is a student at the school. And there was a complaint that he was in the bathroom, and so the parents complained because he was sitting with his legs apart in the women's locker room when girls as young as 6 years old were present. Because I don't care how old they are, they shouldn't have this happening. I think it's vile and disgusting. But the school said that state law doesn't allow us to ignore gender identity disorder as one of the protected classes. Therefore, the transgender individual has the right to use our facility, including the locker rooms. And that is how it's continued. Go online and pull some of these things up and read about them. I'm just scratching the surface. You'll find it very upsetting and appalling. And yet that's where we are. Across the nation, this is happening. And the Oregon State Legislature passed the Oregon Equality Act, which included the language for school when they talked about discrimination, even in the public schools. And so these are the signs that are on the doors of the schools, so that you can see that all the bathrooms are for all sexes to use. And that's the policy in Oregon. Now, in New Massachusetts rule, this is the State Office of Education. They said a student's biological gender is no longer the primary consideration when it comes to going to the bathroom or using a school locker room. A student who says he is a girl and wishes to be regarded that way throughout the school day and at every other area in his life should be respected and treated like a girl, including sports. The guidelines also say that discomfort that other students feel sharing sex-segregated bathrooms or locker rooms with a transgender student is not a reason to deny access, and they use things like bullying as for their policy. Now, back in Colorado, there was a transgender boy there accused of harassing girls in the restroom, and the boy who said he was a girl was permitted to use the girls' restroom, which resulted in the accusation. So the parents of these girls went to the Pacific Justice Institute, who helps families in these situations. And they represented the girls, and they said that the girls were warned if they continued to speak out against the boys' presence in their restrooms, they could face punishment, including being removed from the school's athletic teams or even charged with a hate crime. The group also claims the girls were told that if they didn't like sharing a bathroom with the boys, they could simply refrain from using those facilities at all. They're at school, and they're girls. In California, the state legislature also passed the transgender student school bill. It was just all about the schools. And because of that, all the school kids had to allow transgender students to choose which bathrooms and locker rooms they use and whether they participate in boys or girls sports. So what is happening here in Utah? Well, we're dealing with it in the schools here in terms of in the gay clubs in the schools. Just a year and a half ago, the ALPINE School District actually voted to support this language as American Fork High School applied to have a GSA club there, which of course they voted for and thought it was a wonderful thing. And stated objective is to promote a supportive and affirmative environment and all forms of discrimination, particularly toward LGBTQ and allies, to reduce the risk of suicide. There they put in policy in the school the word discrimination. The Articles of Association stated GSA is a benefit to students, whether gay, straight, transgender, or anywhere on the spectrum of identification. American Fork High School GSA class representatives' responsibility was to work with the class officers to learn about the potential opportunities involved in practicing and being in parades and dances, pep rallies, publicity, and educational activities. So what does this mean in their Articles of Association? They said what their purpose was. Their purpose is to bring together members of the student body to promote a supportive and affirmative environment that is friendly and respectful of all the students of American Fork High School, regardless of their sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression. There's those words. And it's in their policy along with the words discrimination. We will work to end all forms of discrimination on our campus and in our community. This is language that can bring so much grief, and we don't know where they'll go with that, except that this year, after a year of the ALPINE School District again voted this time to allow 2 more clubs with the same kinds of policies. You know, they have to allow the clubs. The law requires that the clubs be allowed, but they don't have to allow these policies. Lone Peak High, and this is in their policy, Lone Peak High School's Gay Straight Alliance. The Lone Peak GSA is designed to inform, support, and reach out. It is an outlet for LGBTQA+ students. We hope to end discrimination and bullying at Lone Peak High School based on gender identity, sexual orientation, and gender expression. There's those words again. And then at Timpanogos High School, they said their purpose was to create a safe, supportive environment for queer and gay students and their straight allies, and to promote unity, and this word, think about this word, acceptance among the student body to truly make THS a community of one striving for excellence. So now we're talking about what's going on with the legislature. Again, we want to defeat the anti-discrimination law, make sure it doesn't pass. But Representative Kraig Powell has already opened bill files to work on this issue. And he is saying Utah Code does not have a chapter heading called marriage. Powell said it is actually titled husband and wife, and all the statutes on marriage referring to husband and wife. So we have a lot of work to revise statutes and have many details to decide. He wants to take all that language out, take out the words husband and wife. Well, as we know, the Supreme Court, hasn't even ruled on this. They're going to rule on it, in June. Well, we'll hear about it in June. And no, we can't go in and change Utah's laws. We can't. We got to leave them just like they are. LeVar made sure that we have the very best language in Amendment 3. That is, in fact, the law in Utah, and we don't want to do anything to change that. So make sure you tell your legislators not to support this. So I have a question for you. When the Supreme Court rules on this and they send the marriage back to Utah, when they say that in Utah, when they tell the states that marriage is a state issue and each state can decide individually for themselves, and Utah, as we expect, will in fact go back to what we have. We have Amendment 3, and that will be the law in Utah. But what will happen if we have anti-discrimination laws? Will anti-discrimination laws lead to same-sex marriage? If Utah passes a law that recognizes gender identity anywhere in the code, then are we legally stating that as a state we agree that a person is the gender they say they are? What happens when 2 men apply for a marriage license? One says he is a man, and one says, I have a deeply held belief that I am a woman. Is that marriage between a man and a woman? You know, every child deserves a mother and a father. Neil Anderson said, while many governments and well-meaning individuals have redefined marriage, the Lord has not. In the very beginning, God initiated marriage between a man and a woman, Adam and Eve. He designated the purpose of marriage to go far beyond the personal satisfaction and fulfillment of adults, to more importantly, advancing the ideal setting for children to be born, reared, and nurtured. Families are the treasures of the earth. Changes in the civil law does not change the moral laws that God has established. So what can you do? Continue to defend and support marriage only between a man and a woman. Share what you have learned today with your friends and family. Invite us to come to your neighborhood and share this message. Contact your legislators and ask them to support religious liberty legislation. Ask your legislators to oppose all legislation that redefine gender. That's anti-discrimination laws. Oppose any attempts to remove the word husband and wife, mother and father from Utah law. Attend rallies, meetings, press conferences, and activities that support marriage between a man and a woman. Come to the legislature to help and get involved with Utah Eagle Forum. Sign up for our emails and attend local chapter meetings.